Markets see a bit of an uptick today as Bernie Sanders announces his departure from the 2020 presidential race, leaving Joe Biden to be the presumptive Democratic candidate facing President Trump in November. And this caused the dollar, as the current safe haven asset, to slide as the rally to have risk on in the markets continues. Meanwhile, oil markets are facing their greatest moment of uncertainty leading into OPEC's meeting on Thursday. Bitcoin Cash experienced its first halving event today, leading price to surge 11%, but we'll get into that. Genesis Capital remarked on the amount of loaned Bitcoin and the spot futures spread, and a fraudulent mining operation is attempting to scam donations for COVID-19 charity. All this and more in today's exciting episode of Breaking Bitcoin.
I'm Cap.
I'm Signoff.
And we're with Particle.io, and this is Breaking Bitcoin.
Welcome back to Breaking Bitcoin. We are live every evening at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is your evening source for everything markets and finance. I'm your host, Justin Wise, lead analyst and senior mentor at cryptocurrency.com. I hope you guys are having a fantastic evening. If you are looking to develop a verifiable systems approach to your trading strategy, join our community. Take advantage of our signals and trade setups, premium indicator suite, our pathways to profit strategy building course, community mentoring, and much more. Sign up today for the premium trading group at premium.crackingcryptocurrency.com. That's premium.crackingcryptocurrency.com. Like I said, markets upticking today, generally off of the news that Sanders exited the presidential race. And again, of course, however you feel about Sanders or democratic socialism is debatable. But what's not debatable is that those policies and those ideas are typically considered bad for business, right? Nationalization of industries, increased corporate taxes. These are all things that businesses don't like, that I as a business owner don't like. And the knowledge that he's out is helping restore investors' faith in the markets when it seems like everybody with their parents' money wants to throw money into the Dow right now. And we are seeing this rally to having risk on in the markets, and it's good for currencies too. The Australian dollar, of course, Australia is a high export country, and if you look at the performance of the Australian dollar, you can link this to the overall global outlook, right? As exports, as intercountry commerce picks up, as the supply chains get restored, the Australian dollar is one to watch. It's kind of a leading indicator of how, good investor sentiment is, and it's highly linked. The other thing about the Australian dollar is it's volatile. It's one of the best pairs to trade. It's highly linked to commodities. And as oil is volatile right now, that is leading the Australian dollar's price to be quite volatile as well. Of course, the odd has other strengths as well. For example, showing the country itself showing an extremely low death count from COVID-19, only 50 deaths in their country. Mostly, however, their currency is rallying today and over the last couple of days because their central bank has decided to keep interest rates unchanged from last week and not add to their bond buyback stimulus package, signaling greater strength in their economy. Meanwhile, in COVID news, the city of Wuhan did lift travel restrictions today, with as many as 55,000 individuals expected to leave the city now and over the next 24 hours. But in the United States, we are gearing up for the worst week in deaths we've seen thus far. I believe the death toll in New York yesterday hitting 1,300 just in that one day. So obviously here in the United States, we are gearing up for a rough week, kind of a traumatic week and tragic week. Now, the pound sterling also rose today as well, generally mostly against the prognostications that Prime Minister Bojo was responding well to his treatment, that he was not on a ventilator. But the euro is down after finance ministers across the European Union could not reach any comprehensive decision on how to tackle the issue of COVID-19 with regard to their bond prices or the broader European Union economy. And there's a broad split right now between North and South Europe. The proposal that they currently face is a joint issuance of debt, essentially. However, that burden will naturally fall on taxpayers from stronger economies. Generally, that's going to be Northern Europe versus the Southern European countries, and that's not something the taxpayers of Northern European countries or their representatives are really keen to sign up on. Right now, the current aims are to set up a new credit line via the European Stability Mechanism, the ESM, but that's been blocked by strong opposition, mostly from the Netherlands. And OPEC, in oil news, OPEC is facing a massive disagreement in reducing output. Right, the solution right now to oil prices are, well, we have to reduce output, right? There's a There's a big thing going on right now with Saudi Arabia and Russia demanding that the United States reduce their output as well, coming off of President Trump's demands that that's what they do, that Russia and Saudi Arabia, as some of the key leading oil producers in the world, the largest oil producers in the world, cut their output. And, this gets a little complicated as we look at what, the United States is doing. Obviously, the United States operations have offset shale, which, we're kind of hoping that OPEC will be flexible on and say, well, that's similar to cutting output, right? But it's similar to cutting output, but it's not really the same. It's not really the same. It's not really what the United States is asking of Russia and Saudi Arabia, not to mention countries like Brazil that this will affect as well. So a lot happening. So we're going to get into a lot today. We're going to cover the markets, but first I want to talk about the Bitcoin Cash halvening. So let's get right into that with today's first story. All right, if you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe if you have not already, hit the bell icon. That's the only way you're going to be notified when we go live, because subscriptions don't matter over here in YouTube land. But let's get to the markets, guys, and break down a lot. All right, so here we are in the live scene. I think I'm going to have to shift that camera up a little bit, but I just can't. Maybe I just can't sit too close. I want to crop the top of my head. We'll be all right. So following up on our reporting concerning the Bitcoin Cash block reward halving, we can confirm the reward halving did take place earlier today. And with it, we did see the market price of the BCH token, gain a little over 11% on the daily. Right? Did gain about 11.2% on the daily, but crashed back down right immediately. And right now is, showing just a little bit of kind of tepid gains. Nothing that it's not outperforming the market, right? It had a nice spike to the upside and it spiked back down, and it's up with the rest of the market broadly in general. Now, over in Bitcoin SV land, which itself forked from Bitcoin Cash and has its own halving coming up in about 24 hours time, it put in an impressive 19% gain on the day, perhaps signaling investors are indeed bullish on the halving narrative for Bitcoin chains, right? Meaning that we can infer, just as I said earlier, that we can kind of infer the price action that we might see surrounding Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, of course, will be having its own halving event arriving in about 34 days. And whatever volatility we may see during the course of the BCH and BSV halving and post-halving events, we might see in a month's time when Bitcoin's reward halving is just days away. And indeed, among the coin market cap top 10, BCH and BSV were were some of the few only coins posting major gains today, while detractors for the halving narrative are saying that the gains will be short-lived and the excitement surrounding the halving narrative is not as relevant today as it was during the 2016 event. I'm going to argue strongly against that. The halvening has its own hype cycle that you cannot price in. If we take a look at the recent price action of BCH was around $249 this time yesterday. Let's actually go to the chart and pull BCH up. All right, so here's current today. Today we just closed, right? So here's where we closed on the 7th, and this is the day of the halvening, right? So if we take a look at the recent price action, BCH was around $249 this time yesterday, and it pumped nearly 12% to $277, reaching a high of $281.23 actually on the Coinbase chart, but since it's pulled back. Now, however, as I said, the coin's price did crash back down to around the 260 range. Since then, we're currently trading up a little bit above that, at about 268, with the daily closing at about 267.38 is where we closed on the Coinbase chart. Now, in that same period of time, we saw Bitcoin SV make a similar, actually a nicer 19% gain. 19% move, taking price from $184.49 to $220 in its trading range this evening. And it followed a nearly identical pattern as BCH, selling off to $202 before recovering again. Now, again, I've said this a bunch before, and it seems for so many people, for you guys watching, for the large majority of people watching, this goes without saying, but I just have to say this. There is nothing extra special about BSV putting in a larger movement. It does not mean that there's more, people like, well, BSV put in more. That means BSV is stronger, right? The BSV the BSV, non-detractor, what do you call a non-detractor supporter? And they're welcome here. They're welcome on this channel. But the reality is that we just have to understand market dynamics, right? Less liquidity, i.e. less thinner order books, right? So less buyers and sellers, less available buyers and sellers at any given price, at any possible price, equals more volatile movements when X amount of buying or selling power comes into the markets, right? This is a fairly simple mathematical equation, right? So BCH is on more exchanges. It has more active market makers. It has more market participants, right? Now, BSV does as well. It's not like it's a barren wasteland over there in the order books, but relative to BCH and BTC, and in fact, relative to a lot of altcoins, its order books are just thinner. Its market is not as well populated, meaning that movements that are going to occur throughout the markets are going to move BSV's price more volatilely, right? Now, this is attractive if price goes in your favor as a trader, as a speculator. You know, we often will hunt for volatility, but there is such a thing as dangerous volatility. Of course, the ability for price to move 19% in your favor intraday also means that price can move 19% against your favor intraday. And of course, BSV has been delisted from a lot of exchanges, thus leading to lack of liquidity, right? So again, this is not necessarily to say I don't want to just slap a face in the BSV boys, face here. Although there's, of course, I'm a BTC guy. But the reality is that you're going to have outsized movements in thinner order book markets, and this is why people trade altcoins, right? This is why people will get bored of trading BTC and want a little bit more yield and go trade an altcoin. For example, Ethereum. I mean, I'm up in the 20 percentiles on my Ethereum trade, but I am up in the small teens. Actually, I don't even think I'm in the teens anymore. In the teens on my BTC USD perpetual long, right? So the lower liquidity markets are more volatile, and that can be a good or a bad thing. You just have to be aware of these risks going in as a trader, that the more volatile of a market that you trade, you are going to get more pronounced price swings, but there is an inherent reward and an inherent danger in that, because again, price can swing contrary to your favor, which means you're going to be taking a larger absolute loss. Now, with Bitcoin SV's block reward halving in just another 24 hours, we could see more bullish action from SV yet. I am definitely not going to rule that out. Now, as many of you know, crypto enthusiasts have long been insisting that the block reward halvings are fundamentally bullish for the price of these coins. With the daily new supply generated by the network of miners getting cut in half, many argue that it puts a pressure on price to rise, since miners do fund their operations through the sale of their rewards. It also helps boost the sound money narrative pivotal to Bitcoin's scarcity sales pitch, and it's generally seen as helping fuel incoming waves of investors into the space who are getting that Bitcoin FOMO for the very first time. And of course, as I said, if you go take a look at Google search trends and you look at the Google search trends for Bitcoin, for the word Bitcoin, it is being dwarfed by the search term Bitcoin halving or BTC halving, right? So again, the halvening event drives its own hype cycle that cannot be easily priced in. Now, the contrarians, of course, state that these block reward halving events are largely already priced in, though, by investors who bought these coins in awareness of the halving timeline. So it's already baked in, so to speak. But again, I think that is silly because it is not easy to bake that in. You have no idea how the retail market is going to respond. Look at 2017 when everybody FOMO'd in once price passed 17,000, right, for the example. Now, on the opposite side of the argument, we can check out this Daily Hodl article where they feature comments by analyst Alex Kruger, who describes reasons why the halving is not quite priced in before the event. In short, no one knows what the miners will actually do. The key point in all this is, what will the miners do? A lot of variables rest on the strategic long-term actions of the miners, as this is a core aspect of their profitability, making price predictions pre and post halving highly unpredictable. Now, Cointelegraph also spoke to Roger Ver of the Bitcoin Cash camp, and he in fact dismissed the idea that the block reward halvening will seriously affect price, saying that the last two halvenings were non-events and weren't at all exciting, and his prediction is this halving will be about the same. Goes to show what he knows. And again, yeah, on day of the halving, let's be real, it depends on perspective here matters. The day of the halving, price dropped, went sideways for a while, and then pumped, right? So yes, while you can say that, yes, the actual event of the day, might be boring or not what you would think it is, I think that he's being a little disingenuous when clearly we're talking about the long-term ramifications of this event. And indeed, the halving day may come and go without much fanfare, but proponents of the bullish halving theory point to a longer time horizon. There's only been 2 halving events to date, this third now this year. So we, as observers, may be making a lot of assumptions giving just 2 such halvings. However, I will be upfront about that. Now, Now, if we consider this Medium article, for instance, it talks about historical data behind the last two halving events and how new all-time high prices were inevitably reached in about a year's time, right? So, here we go. Now, as we can see on this chart, the date of the first halving, November 28th, 2012, and there was 369 days from the halving to the next all-time high. Second halving taking place on July 9th, 2016, and it was 526 days until the next all-time high. Again, law of diminishing returns might state that the third halving slated for the end of May, potentially the beginning of June, depends on network. Is going to occur, and I've seen these charts as well, estimating that the next halving may take anywhere from 600 to 700 days for it to reach that peak. So about 2 years time. So it is 2020. Is it possible we'll see an all-time high in 2022? We'll see. So in other words, maybe don't expect fireworks on halving day, but even a 12-month time horizon will reward those investors staking their hopes on price performing as it did previously. But the ultimate question here is, what do you guys think? Are you bullish on the halving pumping prices this month leading up to the main event, or are you looking at it from a longer term view, as I suggest that you do, where these important Bitcoin fundamentals will take years to shine through and play out? Please let me know down in the comment section down below. Now, the next story that I want to go to and talk about is going to be Genesis Global Trading. Now, some interesting news coming out of Genesis Global, which is an institutional player in the over-the-counter cryptocurrency trading and lending space. And it seems that they have suspended extending credit to the market entirely after observing what they call the biggest deleveraging event that they have ever seen. And this was, of course, detailed by the Block Crypto in their interview with Genesis CEO Michael Morrow, who describes the crypto credit market as being in an unprecedented period of instability, saying that it's due to disappearing arbitrage opportunities in the wake of last month's price crash, the price crash at the end of March. And he explains how earlier this year, the Bitcoin futures market was trading at a premium to the spot market, which is typically what happens. And as a result, counterparties would borrow United States dollars from a firm like Genesis Global in order to purchase crypto assets in the spot market that they would then sell on futures markets and wait until futures expiration, capturing that spread, capturing the arbitrage opportunity. And that's exactly what you do. When the markets are in contango, right, you buy spot and you short futures and you get that spread. You lock that spread and you hold the contract till expiration. And that's how, this is how over-the-counter institutional players trade. Backwardation strategies are a little bit more tricky to pull off. You really need to be a professional to do this well. But essentially, when the 12th and 13th of March happened, the market was flipped completely on its head, according to Morrow. And as a result of Bitcoin's dramatic decline in price that week, traders began returning the dollars that they had borrowed from firms like Genesis Global, and they saw futures markets begin trading at a considerable discount, meaning that the markets were now no longer trading at a premium, meaning that they were trading in backwardation, i.e. futures markets were cheaper than actual spot prices of Bitcoin. And traders developed a new strategy, a backwardation strategy, one we actually do not see that often because, as I said, it is trickier to pull off and execute, where they short the spot market but begin buying the futures contracts, waiting, as I said, for expiration date in order to collect that spread. Now, again, the reason why this is tricky is because it's fairly easy to go spot long on BTC, because then you can, here's the thing, this is why it's tricky and also why it's more dangerous, because you have to hold the funds on the exchange. Right? If you just buy spot Bitcoin, you can move it off exchange into cold storage. Meanwhile, you can use leverage to deposit a significantly smaller amount of capital onto a futures or derivatives exchange, same thing, sorry, and short the futures markets there. With this strategy, you have to short the spot market and go long on the futures contract. So the futures side is fine, but you have to hold that considerable capital on there because there's not too many places where you can short spot Bitcoin. Again, probably the only one that comes to mind for American traders is going to be Kraken. And Kraken does not have the highest available leverage, meaning that you're going to have to keep a significantly higher amount of capital on the exchange. That's why this is inherently riskier for investors or institutional players to do in this fashion. But it is a strategy that Genesis Global here says that traders began executing, also noting that price action and subsequent panic led to a considerable network congestion for the Bitcoin blockchain, making it a challenge to even be moving a lot of assets at once around during that period, at a time when you would really want to be moving assets around as nimbly as possible to take advantage of these arbitrage spreads. And as he continued to describe, that day led to the biggest deleveraging that this crypto-focused firm has ever seen, saying the rate at which the dollars were coming in and that the Bitcoins were going out. Because again, you have to borrow dollars to put on a spread trade, an arbitrage trade where the markets are in contango. But when the markets are in backwardation, you have to do it in reverse. You have to borrow the Bitcoin to short them, meaning you have to return the dollars. You have to do this all holding Bitcoin as your base capital. When you're going long on Bitcoin, you have to borrow dollars to purchase Bitcoin. With this, you have to return the dollars and borrow Bitcoin to short the Bitcoin. So this makes it even a little bit more inherently. This makes it much more volatile, right? This is why, as I said, this is a strategy that you will often see institutional players put on. But again, one that individuals were clearly eager to take advantage of, even as kind of unnatural as it is. But they said that the amount of dollars coming in and the Bitcoins going out the door was the most intense that they have ever experienced. And due to the shifting trend in the industry, Genesis has made the decision to pause the extension of credit to its clients for the month of March. It is still conducting, for the next 2 weeks. It is still conducting business on a client-by-client basis, but in the meantime, times have changed. Morrow says that he sees the equities market as melting, the oil market as melting, fixed income markets are volatile, and commercial paper is not rolling over. The credit market, therefore, is dislocated, and he cannot get comfortable extending credit in this environment. And this is a sentiment that you can carry over to traditional banks and lending institutions, right? I told you guys, I spoke weeks and weeks and weeks ago when this thing all got started, that I said, go out now and get your refinancing done. Get loans if you want to get loans, because the capital is going to dry up. And it certainly is, right? Not only have those attractive refinancing rates gone right back up. Why? Because the smart and savvy credit users of credit went out and got all their refinancing done exactly when I recommended to do it, right when everything started to hit the fan. That's when you want to go do it. You cannot just wait. Like, these opportunities are not on the table indefinitely, right? And now that liquidity is drying up and we're still having this capital crunch, banks are not in a real lending mode, even with 0% reserve requirements. Like, go and try. They are going to be fairly critical of extending credit at this point in time, right? So the plan in the meantime, anyways, for Genesis Global is to stop business on their credit side operations. A couple of weeks or months if necessary to see where the dust settles, to get a better sense of the market and reassess before continuing forward. Interestingly enough, it is claimed that while Genesis is pulling back, some of its rivals in the institutional lending game are still and continuing to and ramping up, offering loans out at reduced collateral rates. But Morrow insists that Genesis is more risk averse and will not chase these firms at uncertain times like this. Eventually, Genesis will be ready to compete with the other guys when the risk is acceptable to their firm. But in the meantime, this is one firm that's playing it very conservative at this point in the cycle. So very interesting to note. And again, something that we can also kind of carry over to the traditional sector and the traditional markets as well. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section down below. Our last story of the day, if you guys are in Texas or in general, if you are feeling kind of charitable about giving away and helping out those who are less fortunate and those who are being hit hard by COVID-19, read the fine print. Be very, very careful and cautious and have a lot of scrutiny as to who you give charity to, who you actually end up donating to. So, we see this all the time, right? You see this on YouTube where these Bitcoin scammers or crypto scammers or market scammers, you see it in the YouTube ads where these crypto scammers are just right at the top of the feeds, right, at the top of everything. I mean, it's a freaking plague. So the securities regulator in the state of Texas is, however, on a roll on cracking down on cryptocurrency scams. And this time, they're sounding the alarm on one more group, allegedly defrauding individuals for COVID-19 related donations. And earlier today, the Texas State Securities Board, the TSSB, issued an emergency cease and desist order against Ultra Mining. The firm is called Ultra Mining, alleging that this mining firm is involved in illicit activities that includes false claims of doubling investors' money. Doesn't happen. Not going to happen. In their notice, the action by the Texas regulator was jointly crafted with the Alabama Securities Commission as part of an ongoing investigation. And in the regulatory order, Ultra Mining is in the regulatory order, it is claimed that Ultra Mining is promising investors returns such as $10,500 yearly after just a $10,000 initial investment. And besides The other alleged violations of Texas securities laws were breaches in Ultramining's affiliate program, as well as fraudulent claims related to their COVID-19 charity effort. It seems Ultramining was purporting to have donated $100,000 to the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, to buy medical equipment for COVID-19, but the investigations say that there is no such evidence that any such fundraising or donation actually took place. Now, Ultramining claims that it raised over $18 million from Texas residents to be used in funding their crypto mining operation, which is expected to generate and make gains. And you're just ready. You're just ready to invest right away. You just give us the money. So if you guys are in Texas, watch out for this one. Watch out for this one. All right. You always want to be wary about these kind of fly-by-night operations. So we try to keep our eyes out for these ones and let you guys know. So, all right, guys, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, sarcastic remarks, and or death threats about what we covered, please leave it in the comment section down below. And for the rest of the show, we're going to get into the markets and go over your favorite crypto assets. Let me know how you guys are doing in the chat. All right. Let's see what we got here. Zuhair Nakvi, thank you so much for the $5, my friend. The $5 Australian dollars. We will take those strong, sexy, sleek, oil-backed Australian dollars. He says, we never had futures markets in previous halvings. Doesn't it present the perfect hype for bigger players shorts into, especially if you bought in 3Ks? We never had futures markets in previous halvings. Doesn't it present the perfect hype cycle for bigger players to short into, especially if you bought into 3Ks? Yeah, I mean, certainly, right? I mean, it all depends, though. I mean, you can't manipulate a market in a direction that it doesn't want to go. I mean, obviously, it's very, very attractive, but, price isn't going to crash unless the majority of the market actually doesn't want it to crash, right? So, hype, so it kind of, I think the event that you're describing is one in where there's not actually positioned buyers. There's not actually positioned institutional investors sitting on price and positioned and expecting, forward momentum over the next 5 to 10 years. In Bitcoin's case, I certainly think that there are, right? I certainly think that there is institutional interest and desire and positioning for much higher prices. So although it is certainly possible that price can go down from here, I think that really the effect that you're talking about, like, you can look at situations like the Big Short, right, where individuals held positions underwater for a long time. In the case of Burry, like almost a year, being completely underwater, and just kind of eating that because he knew that he was right, because there was fundamental weakness in the market, and he waited until there was actually this kind of late stage hype cycle. He didn't really wait. Like, he held through and he just watched that hype cycle, and that ended up being the local top. In this case, I don't really think that it is. I think that there's genuine strength behind Bitcoin's price. I think that Bitcoin serves a strong role. I think it's well positioned to appreciate in price and continue to appreciate in price. So yeah, I mean, I won't sit here and say that price can't go back to 3K. I've laid out those arguments before, but I mean, we certainly have to lose key levels first. And I think that there's actual underlying strength in Bitcoin's price right now. I think there's actual genuine institutional interest in Bitcoin and positioned buyers in Bitcoin who don't want to see it go down to 3K. I think the interest and sentiment is to the long side, not to the short side. But we'll see. We'll see. It's a good question. I mean, we certainly had futures with the most, recent and most significant price crash from 19K all the way to 3K. Did it shatter anyone's dreams when he said the next all-time high may be in 900 days? Yeah, we only got to wait 3 years, guys. Hey, long-term thinking. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. Jose says that markets hate Bernie because he wants to act like Oprah, give everything away for free. Benjai, good to see you, my friend. Robin from the Hood. Did I want to be an interior decorator? I change up my studio so much it's funny. Now, I've only changed my studio a few times, but yeah, I think I might. I think I would have done well as an interior decorator. Thank you, Justin, for your hard work, getting valuable information hand-fed to us at the comfort of your own home. We are spoiled. The Bitcoin Cash community is demoralized, and the BSV crowd has become the Spanish Inquisition of crypto. Religious devotees. Twitch is pretty cool. And Somix says Bitcoin is the glitch in the matrix. What do I say about, you say big families, but I think we could just say individuals buying Bitcoin off of exchanges directly from miners without increasing its price to have as much control when it moves. When it moves, possible or not feasible? I mean, it's certainly possible. I don't really think that exchanges are going to be facilitating that as much as one would think, if at all. It is certainly okay for miners, and I think that a lot of miners do, sell directly to individuals OTC. A lot of miners dump right onto OTC desks. The only problem with, there is a lot of peer-to-peer purchasing that goes on, right? There is a lot of that. And sure, I'm sure that there are political machinations or ideas that kind of go behind that. Here's the thing, right? Just controlling a large quantity of Bitcoin doesn't necessarily mean that you get to control the network, right? Just means that you would be wealthier, right? The whole Bitcoin trifecta is the miners, the developers, and the users. Or when I say users, I mean those who run their own full node, because we can reject blocks, right? So miners can reject transactions. They can try to overwrite the chain. Full nodes can reject what the miners transmit, and developers can change the rules if there is consensus for the miners on how the users will interact with the chain. So it's this really beautiful balance, right? And yes, certainly it is. There will never be anything that's perfect, but this is why Bitcoin has been around and is strong and is doing what it does, because it's not easy to actually break the system and manipulate the system. And the I would say that the quantities of Bitcoin have shifted hands, back and forth, and will continue to shift hands over the next century or 200 centuries, right? Because at some point, nobody lives forever. We don't live in altered carbon. So at some point, I want to say a really unpolitical term here, but at some point you expend your energy, right? Like at some point you determine to invest, right? This is why, the idea that I don't buy this idea that the same elite families have run the world for forever. Like, no, man, families, yeah, sure. There have been strong families for like the last, let's say, 400 years, maybe some that are around for the last couple of thousand years, but that's not a long time, right? And humanity will go on for much longer, right? And those people have seen the sand shift through their feet so many times, right? So power is not this, it's not this steady, static, stable thing. It's something that shifts and moves and churns with the wind and with the sand and with the seas. That, people will always die and make mistakes. Like you just can't, stay on your square, as they say, forever, right? Eventually you fall off, you make a mistake. And there's a big portion in this, which is, as I said, you can't live forever. So eventually you're going to have idiot kids and they're going to screw it up for you. And then somebody will rise to take your place and steal your power. And it's just how life works. It's just how life works. Yes, certainly there are powerful families and powerful institutions that have been around for quite a while and are positioned. And yes, their desires may be nefarious or positive, but I don't believe that they run the world. I believe that, there is a large element of chance in the world. And maybe this comes from trading the markets for so long, right? Like I have met some of the smartest, richest individuals, and they don't control the markets, right? People The reason why I'm also against that narrative is because I think that it is also inherently demoralizing. I think that it is also inherently makes you less powerful to believe that. I think that if you believe that everything happens based on the machinations of ill-intentioned individuals, that you are essentially arguing against the power of the human spirit and the human ability to change things. And I would say that the Bitcoin narrative stands in the face of that and says, no, guys, we got this, right? So you're telling me there's a chance to smack down the Illuminati? Yes, it's called the blockchain. Distribution at 7K? I think the opposite is happening right now. Hello, Mario. Good to see you. Am I still spot long on Bitcoin? Yeah, of course. Imagine XRP holders running the world. Eventually, your family stops making JFKs and JFK Juniors, and you spit out a Robert Kennedy Jr. Everyone acts in their own self-interest. Ultimately, yeah. All right, so let's look at price on the daily time frame. We'll look at the Heikin-Ashi here. Heikin-Ashi trend is still bullish. We're above the breaking Bitcoin initiator and the continuation filter. Looking at Minx here on the daily, we are nowhere near overbought territories, nor have we gotten an exit signal by crossing under. For that reason, I remain spot long on BTC, as well as holding open my actual at-risk position. Going down to the Meso timeframes. Meso timeframes have been fairly boring. Again, as I talked about almost 2 days ago, I said, looking here on the Mesos, we are getting into the overbought territory, so a good area to be taking profit. And less than 8 hours after I said that on Monday's show, price took this nice dip, and we are basically back up at the tops. We put in a triple top here, which again is a price action reversal pattern. We could see that. Of course, for that to be confirmed, we actually need to close the 4-hour candle below 71.95. And of course, Minx has now on the 4-hour time frame recovered from being overbought, putting us back in sort of a range trading area where we are no longer trending on the Meso time frames up or down. We're kind of in this in-between area. Again, this does look like a turnaround spot. That is fine. All of my long positions are in no loss situations, so I will continue to hold them over because I could be proven wrong. But earlier today, I did also put on a short position to hedge myself up. This is what I posted earlier. That's why I was kind of surprised that somebody in the group asked me what I am. But yes, I am still spot long. You can see that, by the way, in my trading journal. If you go and look at my trading journal, you can see my current capital split, and you'll see my current capital split. He says, today is a 9 on the TD sequential daily Bitcoin. And we are going to blow right through that, he says. We're just going to blow right through that. No, listen, the 4-hour time frame looks like we are in an area where we could see a more sustained reversal, potentially down to the $6,800 or $6,700 region. None of that is confirmed. Minx did give us the early warning here with this 4-hour oversold sell signal. This sell signal occurring in oversold territory gives it more weight and more credence. We can also see 4-hour Wada Atar dying out. And then, of course, we also have this triple top pattern with lower highs. So we have 2 subsequent lower highs on top of this, and no sort of divergence coming in from the 4-hour from the 4-hour time frame here. Looking down at the 15-minute chart, just as I talked about yesterday's show, I had expected moving in, and it was happening already before yesterday's show was over, but I did expect us to rally back up and tag the point of control from the previous day's candle after coming down here and finding support on the April 6th point of control. It's exactly what we did, and we did rally up over the course of the 7th, like almost immediately after the show, tag that point of control. I talked about 73.50 being a good take profit target. That's actually was a lower time frame scalp that I put on right before last night's show, but overall today has been fairly interesting. Not a whole lot not a whole lot of things to do. We did get mildly overbought here. Price dipped down near to the low. Price did dip down near to the oversold levels here on the 15-minute time frame, and if we look at MIGS, we had a long signal generated right here, leading to this follow through, and then the sell signal on this candle, which again didn't get you out at the best price, but again, ATR1 getting out here. And we haven't really gotten anything besides that. We're really in an interesting area where here is the daily point of control. This is yesterday's point of control, and this is the point of control that stretched over from 2 days ago on the 7th. Now, after we rallied back up to not yesterday's, but Monday's point of control and consolidated there, we do seem to have rejected from that area, and we are currently dealing with yesterday's point of control. In fact, breaking below it, cycling back up and backpedaling off of that. So I could see, if you were trading against the trend, I can see the justifications here for a short. Although I would not want to be in that trade. I would not want to be in that trade if we end up closing above 73.40 or, God forbid, 73.67. I think those are the areas where if we close back above there, we will be seeing continued movement to the upside. But right now, on the lower time frames, and the mesos are confirming that a little bit, with the mesos being overbought, and then recovering from that, and with price averaging out over the 4-hour time frame and putting in that triple top, I can see the justification here for a pullback. Again, not something that I want to trade because I don't trade against the trend. I would only be looking for longs. So again, this would be an opportunity for me to wait for price to move to the downside and accumulate more positions to the upside. Renko on the daily time frame. It's not even on the daily time frames. It's just Renko. I have Renko on the 1-second chart. OHLC. 2.25% of price. We are still bullish. Renko has not given an exit signal or an initiation into shorting. Ethereum putting in some nice bullish price action as well. The Heikinashi trend is to the upside. And of course, regular Japanese candlesticks are also bullish as well. We are above the continuation filter and above the initiator for the breaking Bitcoin system. So we are still spot long on Ethereum if one is holding Ethereum as margin. And of course, I still have my Ethereum trade on. Of course, I have aggressively updated my stop loss to target 1 because we did hit target 2 not too long ago. So things are well here. Things are good here in Ethereum land. A close below 154.78 would invalidate the daily bullish trend and put us in a no trade zone for a minute. Going down to the 4-hour trend, what is the 4-hour trend doing on Ethereum? Again, very similar. We reached oversold conditions here, overbought conditions, which again, we didn't get any signal to exit our trade until the actual cross under in overbought territory. Here, Mink's calling pretty much the absolute top of the market. We have not yet recovered from overbought conditions. However, we have experienced that exact same thing. 3 subsequent lower highs, nice triple top pattern that would be confirmed on a 4-hour close below, let's say 164. Although you could be more aggressive and say a 4-hour close below 160, that's 169 at this point in time. So rather than actually looking at the range, the outlier low, so this candle is clearly the outlier. You can see this tight 4-hour range right here. The more aggressive trade setup would be looking for the 4-hour close below the range, and then assuming that is the inherent weakness in the in the current market. So I can see the argument for a short below 169.20 on a 4-hour close below 169.20. I can also see the argument for a close below the outlier, but again, typically if you're trading those kind of range dynamics, you would want to be waiting until price closes outside of the range. You've had this range established, you have your outlier and then your acceptance back into the range, and you've stayed within that range, right? So very similarly, I could see the breakout trade on the 4-hour close above 173.75. We have quite a tight range. You can see volatility dying down as well. Water explosion is not really telling you to do anything. It's just told you that positive momentum and volume have died off. Volatility is dying off as well as the explosion level is falling. And it's going to be a while before this resets and gives us a trade. So those are the things I'd be watching. If you wanted to trade against the market, you could look for that aggressive short below on a 4-hour close below 169.20. Minx would be confirming that, but you're a little late to the party on there. And then, of course, you want to wait for Wadatar explosion to confirm that trade as well. That's the meso trend. Overall, for me, the meso trend is flat. 15-minute time frame on Ethereum. Again, very similar. Where are we at? We rallied back up to Monday's point of control, as I talked about. Rallied back up to Tuesday's point of control, as I talked about. And then over the course of Wednesday, basically consolidated underneath Tuesday's point of control. Over the course of today, consolidated under Tuesday's point of control, rallying back above that, attempted to, we did that close above yesterday's point of control and bounced off of it for a short-lived 2-hour trade, but since have reversed and we are trading below today's point of control. So we really do need to get above the POC formed at 172.58. Right now, we are consolidating at yesterday's point of control at 171.14, and I would think that losing this level, just like over here, we would basically looking for this price action right here where we fail. We come back up, and instead of accepting back into the range, we reject, right? And of course, Minx was warning us, giving us the 15-minute sell signals in this overbought territory here and here. So again, I don't see initiation or bullishness to the upside. We're not in buying areas for Ethereum or Bitcoin on the lower time frames. We're not in buying territories for Bitcoin and Ethereum on the meso time frames, and the daily trend is still good. And of course, the Renko trend for Ethereum did flip back up to the upside, but again, getting a little bit of chop here on the Renko for Ethereum. Looking at the bigger picture here for Bitcoin. We have been accepted back. Yesterday's weekly close confirmed the acceptance back into the value area of Bitcoin, where 70% of volume is conducted. So we're not at extreme highs. We're not at extreme lows anymore. Current point of control is sitting right here where it has for quite a while at 63.14, going back to the peak of the cycle in 2017. We are trading above that level right now. So this yellow box territory that I have outlined here, for me, is the current buy zone if price were to dip. This is for spot buying. This is for long-term holding or positional trading. So if price were to dip back into the $6,800 to $6,000 range, I would consider those buying opportunities. The next significant level of resistance that we have overhead is going to be at the next at the next high volume node at 81.47. It's really 8,000 to 8,200, and then 10,000 to 10,200. Acceptance above 8,200, however, I would say would be a strong case for pretty much a guaranteed test of the $10,000 area. And then getting above that level, I begin to be hesitant because I feel at this current point in time, if we're just charging to the upside, prices above 10,000 are going to either lead to one of two things, and that is an unsparked bullish rally like we saw back in December of 2017 or toward the end of 2017, or it's going to indicate rejection, right? So I would, again, the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent, but we would definitely be trading outside of the value area. And you could expect a reversal at some point in time. But that is an area. If we get above 10,000, you want to let that trade ride. Just let that trade ride until you get that daily sell signal, because the end of that trend is going to be violent and wicked until we consolidate at a higher level. And if price ends up consolidating around, 15,000, 18,000, 19,000, well, we've never seen anything like that before. So nobody knows. We'll have to wait and see. But certainly above 10,000, I would expect to see either an immediate rejection, which I think is unlikely. More likely, I would expect to see price begin accelerating rapidly to the upside as the herding effect begins to happen. So many people are going to get bullish above 10,000. We saw the exact same thing over here, right? And the rejection was swift, but again, you wouldn't want to, there was a lot of price opportunity there between 10,000 and 14,000, right? You will let that baby ride. So, how are we sitting on time? 9:52. We got about 8 minutes left for the show. Let's get into, let's continue scrolling through the chat and see if you guys have any questions. David Rice says, short the bottom. Go, baby. Myth says, Trading Journal, where that's cool. Yep, all my live trades are posted live for all the members of the premium trading group to see. All of the analyst trades are. We have Fibonacci, Alex, Da Vinci, myself, Jason, Trunker. And you can see all of our open positions and closed positions, risk, everything. You can see the historical results at results.crackingcryptocurrency.com. You can go through all of our historical results. We're the only trading group that publishes their results every single month. Jose Canetta said, close over 63.67 on which time frame? Let's see here. Pretty sure I would have been referring to Bitcoin here. I think I was actually referring to Ethereum, but similar to Ethereum, you can see the range high that's been formed here. You can see what I would argue would be the range low, most likely right here, and the outlier and the acceptance back into the range. So I can see the argument for the 4-hour short below 72.75 and the long above 73.89. And then getting into that's on the 4-hour time frame. On the lower time frames, on the 15-minute time frame, I don't see where you got that 63.67 close over 63.67. We're trading at 73.16. Oh, 73.68. I can see on the 15-minute time frame. That's where I would want to be out of the trade if I were short, because that would be reclaiming Monday's point of control. So we'd basically be trading higher than the current highly volume traded area, which would be a good positive sign to see. I don't really see the momentum to do that right now. I expect to see more consolidation or a pullback here, but we'll see. All right, let's see here. The Restream bot is broken, of course. Let's go over to DLive. And we'll drop some lemons in the basket. And we'll distribute. Mr. Ether wants to look at Tezos and Storm. Crazy Legend, thank you for the follow over there on DLive, my friend. Necrosis66, thank you for the follow on Twitch. Zuhair Nakvi says the quarterly 10 aggressively simple is sloping down for the first time in Bitcoin's history. How does a quarterly downtrend affect your bias? It doesn't affect my bias at all, because I simply don't know what that is. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what that is. I've never seen that indicator or level of analysis. So I wouldn't let that affect my trading decisions or abilities whatsoever. I only look at data that so the only information I consider relevant is information that I've back tested and made money with, right? Like anything else, I just give my opinion on, and I don't let it factor into my analysis. And this is what you'll do. This is what you'll do with your own trading strategy. You will isolate yourself from the opinions of other people, because none of it matters, right? None of it matters. Oh, he said a typo. Let me see here. Quarterly 10. Oh, so the 3-month 10 simple moving average is sloping down aggressively. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many traders buy or sell off of the quarterly 10 simple moving average. It's honestly the very first time I've ever heard it brought up in conversation. Just like, I had never heard of the what's the thing? NVT ratio, right? Like that was the be all end all indicator, right? And nobody talks about that anymore. But if you didn't know about the NVT ratio for that like 6 months when that's all anybody talked about, you were a dummy. And now nobody talks about it because it was never that indicative of an indicator anyways. Not as many people look at that as people assume. Like the reality is like intelligent people look at those things and then unintelligent people come in and move the market in a certain direction, right? Because they FOMO in or out. So, I mean, I'm certainly not going to say that it may or may not be significant. I just don't know how that would perform, right? It's not something that I can back test. It's not a metric that I've used in traditional markets. It's not a metric that I've used in Forex markets. So I would be simply talking out a body part if I were to tell you that it does or does not do something to price, right? I'm a systems trader. I stick to what I do good. You're only here for the lemons, Ricky. Don't lie. All right, let's go to That's right, Gui. You have to find an indicator that nobody uses. Which is hard to do because clearly like somebody had to build it, right? All right, let's look at STZ. XTZ USD. This man asks for on Coinbase. Checking out his long-term holds. Tezos, I do not see on the daily time frame. We are above the continuation filter. We are above the breaking Bitcoin initiation level. We have rising volatility from Auditor explosion. Parallax confirmation is bullish. We're not overbought. Minx is not also overbought. We are beginning to enter into getting close to being overbought, but we're really not there. We really are in the positive aspect of Minx right now, right? So we need Minx to cross below zero. We need to close below the continuation filter, or we need Parallax to go below zero to generate an exit signal from this. We can also take a look at Minx exits, and I don't see anything. So we're good. I don't see an exit indication on the daily time frame. On the 4-hour time frame, on the 4-hour time frame, we were overbought in this area, recovered from there, and we are just beginning to put in re-entry signals now. I'm trying to look at your comments in SOMX because other traders set buys and sells according to those moving averages. Yes. Which is not 10%, but still an indication. And then I didn't say just it's an indication, which I am free to ignore totally, but they don't only show values. They have slopes up and down, which might indicate a trend or reversal. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referring to, my friend. I was addressing Zuhair's question. I really kind of missed these comments by you. If I wanted to buy some BNB as an investment, where would I store it, buy it? Was thinking Binance, then HODL on Coinbase. I would use the Binance DEX, would be the safest option. There's not really a super intuitive way. I mean, there's not a super intuitive way. Like you can hold your private keys with a ledger, for example, and, use the Binance DEX, which is how I do it. The other thing is you can hold it on Binance, right? But I'm never going to recommend that somebody hold their funds on an exchange. Just my thing. And then Storm and Link. Storm's kind of interesting here. Really hasn't seen the, and I like Storm. Hasn't really seen the volatility that we would want to see. So long signal was generated right here. Continuation long signal, that is. So here's one loser on Storm. Entry here, exit here. But we would not have taken that trade. No confirmation. It's a continuation that we could, no, not have taken. And 3-bar rule, we were 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so there was no trade here on Storm that I would have taken or caught. Kind of the only thing that I would be watching for here on Storm is if we get a rising explosion level, that would be a potential continuation, or if Minx were to cross under and cross back up, if we were to cross under and cross back up the continuation filter. That's the only thing that I could see. That's the only thing that I could see for me taking this. Insofar as where it's at, I mean, that's what we need. We need volatility, right? We need volume or volatility because we're just drifting here. So we need to see a strong candle body close, which we did see over here, but you can see these wicks to the upside give me a little bit of concern. I just don't see a good trading opportunity here on Storm. And then Link. Yeah, I mean, just, Link is like super hype train, right? So we're going to see if, eventually if it does what it says purports that it will do, which is, be that end all be all oracle. Let's see here. Link signal right here. One could have gone long here. 1, 2. So 1/3 reduced risk. So 2/3 risk trade. Boop. And I assume, and then one could have also entered here on the rising explosion level. Yeah, one would have hit probably all 3 take profits. Still be holding this trade, depending on what take profit strategy you're utilizing, whether it's 50-50 all in, all out, 1, 2, 3. I don't see a safe entry on Link here. I mean, we're well past the entry level right here. Like here was the breaking of the initiation, same candle as the continuation filter. 2 candles later, we get confirmation for Parallax, and 2 candles after that, we get confirmation for Minx, and Minx crosses above 0 on the 4th, right? So all of our initiation signals occurred through this range right here. Depending on what strategy you're utilizing, you could have used any combination of them. And then again, you got another opportunity here on the 6th with the Wada Atar powerful signal, and off to the races. Band is like Link, but I'm not sure if it lives up to the hype. I don't know either, man. I like Link. I don't have a problem with Link. I have a small amount of Link. With that being said, guys, it's time to pump that like button, that is, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me for another episode of Breaking Bitcoin Market Analysis. I'm your host, Justin Wise. We will be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time to be your evening source for everything markets and finance. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments section down below. Please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Notification bell is the only way you're going to get notified when we go live every single day. And of course, if you guys want to take advantage of everything that we do in our private community, make sure to sign up at premium.krakencryptocurrency.com for indicator solutions, strategy building solutions, and community mentoring. We will be back tomorrow, guys. I hope you guys have a very safe evening of trading. And be excellent to one another. I'll see you guys tomorrow evening at 9.